Welcome back, and you're watching Gravitas. In less than an hour from now, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will address the media formally for the first time since his election as a U.S. president last year. He's the first president-elect in modern era to have waited so long before he addressed the press. What is also unusual is that the man has usually chosen to tweet his responses, decisions, and even policy announcements. But the big reason that Trump could be addressing the press is this. News reports claim that the American intelligence officials have presented President-elect Donald Trump with evidence that Russia has a blackmail file on him. The information presented was allegedly from a credible former British spy, but Trump has dismissed the reports as fake news. WION's London Bureau Chief Mandy Clark has this story.
The 35-page British memo was published by BuzzFeed. It claims Russian sources told the former UK spy they had extensive material on Trump, including a secret film of him in a hotel suite where President Obama stayed in Moscow, and Donald Trump is alleged to have committed lewd acts. The former spy who compiled the evidence is apparently considered credible by U.S. intelligence agencies. The problem is there is very little in the document's contents that can be independently verified, and there is no official confirmation on the details of the CIA briefing to Donald Trump. Also, the former British spy was hired by political enemies of Donald Trump, and the key documents were compiled to derail his election campaign. Donald Trump has completely rejected the reports as a smear campaign against him, stating on Twitter, "Fake news, a total political witch hunt." Russia has also dismissed the claims. Vladimir Putin's spokesman said, "This information does not correspond to reality and is no more than fiction." The apparent leak by security services comes just days before his inauguration. The news doesn't seem to have much sway with his supporters, and until the dossier can be verified, it will be hard to prove it to be true. Mandy Clark, WION, London.
While the world is agog about the implications of these revelations, Donald Trump, in his signature style, has dismissed all the noise around it. He tweeted, "Fake news, a total political witch hunt." Joining us live on the show is WION's London Bureau Chief Mandy Clark. Mandy, you've read the document. What are the allegations that stand out for you?
Well, one of the key allegations that really stands out is that Russia, the authorities, have used this blackmail technique to get people to work for them. And so one specific example in the document is that they had spied on cyber hackers and then used this blackmail to force them to work for Russian authorities. Now, the implication here is that since they allegedly claim to have this blackmail file on Donald Trump, that his position could ultimately be compromised and they could be using Donald Trump for the Kremlin's purposes. It also alleges that they have been working on Donald Trump, essentially grooming him for the past 5 years.
Mandy, the document also says that Trump was aware of Russian cyber hacking of Hillary Clinton.
It certainly does, and those are serious implications for Donald Trump if it's proved to be true, because it would imply that Donald Trump was working with another country to spy on his own country. Now, that could lead for calls for him to be impeached, but to make it clear, these allegations haven't been yet proved true.
But Mandy, the documents also claim Russia has evidence of corrupt business dealings there.
Yeah, and specifically this document points that Donald Trump has had kickbacks and also large bribes being paid for business deals in China. Now, that would be particularly awkward for Donald Trump if it's proved to be true, because he's taken such a hardline stance on China. Now, we have to make it clear that these allegations are unverified, and so Donald Trump has simply denied any truth to these allegations.
It's surprising to see, Mandy, that so much has come out since President-elect Trump's election, and even before that. There must be tremendous for him to battle with. Thank you, Mandy, for joining us and giving us perspective. We are now joined live by WION's Bureau Chief in Washington, Giles Gibson. Giles, how big is this report in the media there?
It's been incredibly explosive, Rohit. Just to reiterate from what Mandy was saying, none of the details from this dossier from this former British official have actually been confirmed. But CNN's reporting is that they're credible enough that they've taken these details. US intelligence officials have taken them to both President Barack Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. So the very fact that they've even been briefed on that, top US government officials and top officials in Trump's incoming administration is very significant. And clearly all the chatter in the US media, on social media, is about the possible implications of these as yet unverified claims.
Giles, although Trump has dismissed it, will this issue likely to dominate the press conference today?
That's right. As you were saying earlier, Rohit, this is the first time we've heard from the president-elect since he's been nominated as president. So clearly that's going to dominate that press conference, which is due to start in less than an hour's time. And even at the moment, as we speak, Rex Tillerson, Donald Trump's pick for the next US Secretary of State, is in the middle of a confirmation hearing in the US Congress, and he himself has faced allegations about alleged links to the Russian state and to Vladimir Putin. So clearly these allegations, unverified at this stage as they are going to be a sort of a cloud over the incoming Donald Trump administration with that inauguration on the 20th of January.
Mandy, I'd like to come back to you again. Tell me, what is the reaction in Europe on this story? Are people aware of this story, or if they are, how they're responding to it?
Well, the European press has been very cautious about how they reported it, since a lot of it's unverified, and the most salacious detail has not been put into the public forum. However, overall, the British public, Donald Trump isn't an overly popular candidate or president, and so there's a feeling, and the British public are also naturally very suspicious of the Russian government. So there is a feeling of apathy that, there is a likelihood that there could be truth to these allegations. And also, there's also a feeling that likely nothing will come of it unless it is verified. He might face scandal, but in many ways he's faced worse allegations in the past. So it is another kind of negative chink in his armor, but you get the sense here that it's not likely going to be an impeachable offense.
I was seeing some of that information pouring out. It seemed very gory, what we were listening to. What does it mean for Trump's international reputation?
Well, at least in the European context, his international reputation is murky. He's kind of seen, certainly his position on women and a few of his other positions on business. He had said at one point that he'd be willing to nuke Europe. That never went down too well here. He said he'd never take his options off the table, including dropping a nuclear bomb on Europe. So that didn't go down too well. But he does have a reputation for being a tough talker. Now, whether this will damage his credibility, that he's essentially a mouthpiece for the Kremlin, that is the main concern that he will have for his international reputation. I think the attitude is, wait and see to see what comes out of these allegations and how he will react to it. His habit of going straight to Twitter is also seen as not very presidential. So I think, at least on this side of the pond, they're hoping for perhaps a more presidential official reaction to these allegations.
Mandy, you and me were in the United States for the election. On the night after the election, there seemed to be a lot of shock on the street. Some of them couldn't believe it, that this had happened. Giles, a few months later, what do you think on the ground? Has the whole idea of Donald Trump being the president seeped in?
Well, I think these allegations will change that conversation. Really, before, the conversation was all about this U.S. intelligence reports that there were links to the Russian state in terms of the hacking on the Democratic National Convention. I think these latest allegations, unverified as they are will change the conversation. They've sort of personalized the debate. The sort of even the slim possibility that the Russian government could hold these sort of details about financial and sexual activity by an incoming US president is clearly going to be a major concern for both the Trump administration and for voters here in the US. That's for sure.
You know, when the world looks at the United States, the reflection they get is from Hollywood, and sometimes it's not so great because it's got a lot of content that doesn't go down well in the world. And when details like this start coming out, they certainly start looking at the United States with those eyes. It is a well-known fact that Donald Trump has no love for CIA. In fact, he's been dismissive about the American agency's intelligence efforts. He's kept his distance from them, often ignored and insulted them. This is Donald Trump's own intelligence community, which he as chief executive will head.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Donald Trump's public shenanigans are well known. He's offended every section of the society, from abusive comments about women to the disabled. Now it's the turn of the US intelligence community. Intelligence agencies say he has ignored, contradicted and insulted them. He has refused to have any relationship with them, and they warn this could have serious consequences for national security.
You know, I'm like a smart person. I don't have to be told the same thing and the same words every single day for the next 8 years. But if they're going to come in and tell me the exact same thing that they told me, that, you know, it doesn't change necessarily. Now, there'll be times where it might change. I mean, there'll be some very fluid situations. I'll be there not every day, but more than that. But I don't need to be told, Chris, the same thing every day, every morning, same words. Sir, nothing has changed. Let's go over it again. I don't need that.
The sense is Trump has worked hard to convince the American people that the intelligence community cannot be trusted. Reports say he believes the office of the Director of National Intelligence is politicized and bloated and must be cut to size. He is also said to want to restructure the CIA and create more posts overseas. Trump's people have denied the report, but the revelations about Russian hacking combined with the documents put out on BuzzFeed may do little to bring any warmth in the relationship. Sana Khan for WION.
Intelligence always critical in war like the one against the Islamic State. On that note, we take a short break on Gravitas. We're just a few minutes away from that hugely anticipated press conference of US President-elect Donald Trump. Stay with us.